Today's card, we're going to be making a Build-A-Scene card using this die set from Do Crafts. It says X-Cut. It is a Do Crafts die set, and I've had it for last year, maybe the year before, and this is the first time I've actually done anything with it. Now let me pull it out of here. I'm sure it's still available. I've seen it places online, which inspired me to finally use it this year. So it comes with a series of different dies. Think of this as kind of the die version of stamp layering, so to speak. And it comes with 4 different layers. The top layer, second layer, third layer, and then the back layer, as well as some bats, some stars, and this nifty little moon. Now you will notice that these are actually adhered to cardstock because inside of here Do Crafts kindly includes a very nice piece of magnet to hold all the dies in place. Now, there isn't a whole lot of instruction other than how do you use dies on here, and so then it's just kind of up to you, and I didn't really see anybody using these online. It's kind of up to you for designing your own, how you want it to look. So this video really is more about not die cutting, but design to see different color combinations, as well as just a general overview of how I put it together. These weren't the easiest to use in my Big Shot for the simple fact that my Big Shot seems to have a lot of gaps in the rollers, and it required going back and forth multiple times for each of the dies, which was kind of a pain. So I'm going to spare you all of that. It's not really value add anyways in this video, and show you how I put it together. So the first thing I did was I tried to figure out what colors of paper did I want. You do need paper that has a little bit of sturdiness to it. This is the Recollections paper, and it is not the most sturdy. However, for these purposes, it had enough different colors of gray to go well together. And so this is the Architecture paper pack. Get them on sale for $2 each if you're paying attention to ads at Michael's. And I went through several different combinations until I found a combination that I liked. This gray has a little bit more of a bluish tint to it, so even though it's in between in shades, it just didn't play nicely with the other grays. And this one has a little bit of a greenish tint to it, so gray really isn't, all grays are not equal. However, when I put it in back, that was actually the right amount of gray to set off this lightest shade and be able to line up the little moon there. So this was one color combination. Now I do have 2 other color combinations that I tried out because I really wasn't sure which version I liked best. So it did require quite a bit of die cutting, especially with fiddly dies. So let me put my little moon back there. And here's the second color combination. that goes from light to dark. Still using that same bluish gray in the background. This is dark to light. And I do like the idea of looking into the scene. So I wasn't real excited about this one. And a third one, I took, this was even lighter. So this was the lightest four lightest shades of gray. And I think there was a piece of black here somewhere. It's supposed to go in back. And this just didn't set it off well enough. So I scrapped this one. This one really wasn't a contender. And it's what led me to then try, okay, let's go one shade darker. So the second gray in this is now the top gray in this. And it fades all the way to black. Still, wasn't quite getting me excited. And that's why I tried this version, and this version came out pretty well. So I kind of like this one. So the second step that you have to do once you figure out what colors you like is as you set down each die on the next piece of paper, you need to figure out where it needs to go. So let me pull out a die and show you what that means. So I'll use version number 2 here. And that's the tree branches. So for this one, this is the one that I cut first. I made sure I had the right gaps on each side, and I'll just use the white card base as the example here. So let's say this is my second color of gray. I line this up on the paper, then I set down the die and slid it underneath to figure out where I wanted it to go. Because I wanted to make sure that I had even margins on either side, as well as even margins top and bottom, because you're starting to look into a tunnel as you go from layer to layer. So I wanted to make sure that there was enough of this bottom here before I taped it down. So I did use some micropore tape on this. That held it in place nicely. I always tape parts like I would have taped here and here to tape it down. And I tape onto the piece that's going to be scrap left behind. That way, if there's any sticking after it runs through the die machine, and given the fact that I had to run these through several times, that really increased the likelihood of them getting stuck to the paper. It would be stuck to paper that I didn't care about, my scrap piece. So I went through, did that same process for all the different layers. At the end, I figured out where I wanted my little moon to go, and realized that what I really needed for the moon was a little bit of a yellow background. And so I took some yellow ink, probably the crushed curry, could have been Daffodil Delight, hard to say, and I just used a little piece of sponge and sponged a little bit on, just enough to give you a little bit of color in the background. And that's actually going to go back here behind the moon. So the very first thing that we're going to tape down is that piece. And you'll notice I'm taping on the inked side, because that's the side that needs to stick to the gray paper. Because I want it stuck to the gray paper more so than I want it stuck to the card base. So this is my front. Here's my moon color. I'm just going to line it up. It doesn't even matter if it's even or not. It really doesn't matter. You're never going to see that. And I do like the fact that the cloud is a little bit raised. That just gives you that extra level of dimension. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is figure out where this needs to go on the back, and we are going to tape this down. This is a piece of 10" by 7" paper, folded at 5 to make a 5x7 card. I did try to do this on an A2 size 4¼ by 5½ card. It just didn't fit very well, especially if you wanted anything on the front. So we do need to take this piece and lay it down and figure out where the moon piece needs to go. Now this is the only piece that won't be stuck down with foam adhesive tape. So I'm just going to make a little mark on either side because you'll never notice it. So I know where to set that back down. And I'm just going to take my tape runner, zip zip. Find my marks. And adhere that down. Now you'll notice this nicely woven collection of different size of foam tape. That's because as you put down each layer, I wanted to have more foam tape to provide support on the back. I also wanted it to be about 1/8 of an inch in on each side, which then drove how wide to cut the centerpieces. And I was very careful to align it for each layer so that there weren't any edges from the foam tape showing around the cutout. So this first piece was actually the easiest because there's a lot of extra space on this one. As it went down though, each of the next layers got thinner and thinner until we were down here to about 3/8 of an inch together. Now this piece also, you'll see back here, has cutouts for the windows, and that's important too because you want to have something behind there, just like we have here, to provide for light behind. And this will, because this will be raised, you'll actually get a little bit of light behind there. So I'm just going to pull off the backing. Now what this is this is just regular foam sheet that you get at the craft store, you know, like 99 cents a sheet, 39 cents a sheet, whatever it is. And I ran it through my Xyron machine. All of the tools that I have, I love my Xyron machine. This thing is so versatile. And what it allowed me to do was put foam on all these different pieces. And that way I don't have to worry about tape. There's foam that covers edge to edge, and in fact, because I wasn't thinking at the time, I actually didn't run foam through on both sides, which I should have because I forgot that it needs to be stuck to both sides. So you'll take a look inside here and you can see that I have a 9" cartridge in here. It's very easy to pull the cartridge out, and there is room for a 5" cartridge that slides right in here. So this does both 9" and 5", which is really cool. I also have one each of the 1½ sticker machines that makes permanent and repositionable stickers, and I use those all the time as well. And in fact, would probably use it for some of the thinner pieces here if I wasn't doing all the pieces here. So you just stick it back in, Make sure that the tail is between these two clampy rollers. Snap. And slide the pieces in. Now I do like to make sure that I maximize all of my adhesive as much as I can. I also want to make sure, because the top doesn't get adhesive, only the bottom that you stick through is adhesive, but I want to make sure that I'm putting the unadhesived side down. Tuck that in there. Tuck that in there. Tuck these pieces on the end because I still have some room left for my 9 inches. And start rolling it through. And when you're done, it has this neat little cutter on the back. Something slices through. You have a whole sheet full of double-sided, sticky foam strips. I do like to run up and down to make sure that the adhesive, which will stick on each side, that these get firmly pressed down all around, so that when this outer layer of plastic comes off, any adhesive that's not stuck to your piece comes off with the plastic. But in these edges in here, sometimes it leaves the adhesive stuck to your piece. It also will go on the back and rub to make sure it's firmly adhered on the back as well. So once you get these all stuck and ready to go, now you're committed, because once you pull that paper off, you're ready to use them. And once they come off of this bottom sheet, then you got to put them down. You just can't leave them laying around like I did with just one side like that. You can see here that they're sticky on here from the edges where it didn't adhere to your piece. This is far and away probably my favorite tool of all the stuff I have for crafting. Alrighty, so where were we? We were working on the church, and we were going to put down a piece of vellum behind the church windows. So what I did was I took a little piece of copy machine paper and stuck it down behind there to come up with a little template. And I cut and kept cutting and kept cutting until you had coverage from the front, but nothing overlapping in the back. Then I took that, traced it onto this piece of vellum, and we'll cut that out. Alright, let's see how that works. That looks like that will cover the doors and windows. So the next step that I want to do is I do want to ink that up on the back side with some of that yellow ink. Now to do that, I'm using this little piece of foam wedge that I got from Stampin' Up, and it's actually kind of cool. I've used the Holtz circular ones and never really quite got the hang of that. I've used the rectangular ones. Those didn't work great. I really like this little sponge wedge. I'm just going to take a little bit. Easy peasy. So, to the foam strips. Make sure I put the foam strips on the back of the paper. And these are cut so that there's about 1/8 of an inch on each edge. And the only problem with using the Xyron is once it's down, you're committed. So make sure when you put it down, it's exactly where you want it to be. Now, to add a little something something to this card, I did decide, after I got it all put together, that it needed just a little something more. So I got this Thinlit set, this year's Tim Holtz Vintage Spirit set, and between the 3 pieces, I didn't like Boo, so that one was out. I took a look at Fright, but because of the G, it was going to come up and cover all the fence work. I didn't want to do that. So that meant Wicked. Wicked was my choice. And I think what I'm going to do is use some of this Elizabeth Craft glitter, the silk microfine glitter in the color Pewter. And I'm going to create a sheet of gray cardstock that I'm going to put the glitter on, and then cut that out with my Big Shot and see how that looks. So let's run this through. Now this is really important because you're using glitter to make sure that all of the adhesive is really smushed down so that you get good coverage with the glitter. You could use glitter paper, but you know what? I have glitter on hand. We're just going to use glitter. and be prepared to make a mess. I'm going to bust out a piece of paper here. And this is actually something where I do try to use my embossing buddy to make sure that I usually put it on the paper underneath to make sure that glitter doesn't stick to it, because the glitter just gets everywhere, but I don't see embossing buddy. My buddy is missing, so we're just going to go for it. There's a little tiny void right in the middle of that. We'll have to make sure if no glitter sticks to it that it lines up with an edge where it won't matter on the die. When I have nice big pieces of this release paper like this, I always save it because there's always a use for it later on when I'm trying to prevent ink from going everywhere or whatever. You don't really need very much just because this goes on in such a thin layer. So I just use my fingers and push it out to the edges. And that helps reduce the amount of glitter left over too, tremendously. Now you'll see that there's quite a bit that's still left on this paper. There's a couple things that you can do. One, I just use an extra sheet of paper and scrape it. That helps pull up quite a bit, actually. And there's still a lot left over. So I use handy dandy Swiffer sweepers. Boy, if that ridgy edge doesn't just pick up all the glitter, it's awesome. Because otherwise, with as much glitter as I use, there'd be glitter everywhere. More so than there already is. Just a quick sweep from the ridged side, and then I use the smooth side, pick up whatever's left over, and that makes that little problem go away. So now we're going to just burnish down the glitter on the paper here. Make sure that we get a good adhesion, as well as it just brings out the sparkle just a little bit more. Now, you might wonder, why didn't I put this through the sticker machine twice? I don't want both sides of the die cut to have sticker on it. I just want the front to hold the glitter on, and because it won't be adhering everywhere on here, I only wanted to have the parts that are actually going to touch the card. So I will be right back while I go and cut Wicked out on my big shot, and I'm going to make sure that I align this so that little gap in the adhesive is in between letters. Now I am going to line this up so that I can get a little bit of glue right there so that these edges stick down onto those fence posts. Just a little bit of sparkle. How cool is that? Alright, so this is our first in our Halloween series. This is Halloween. Check back on our channel. There will be more posts under Halloween, and there will be a Christmas series as well as the continuation of our Love Fall art. So until next time, have a great day and happy crafting.